Hey, it's Adam Lugsch-Tehle, existential and lifestyle coach, and a guide for mastering life's many challenges. Today, let's talk about one of those challenges. We're diving deep into the topic that we've all wrestled with, at least I can attest we have, overcoming intrusive thoughts or overthinking. Some people like to call it ruminating. I like to call it chewing the cud, whatever you please. So have you ever felt that crushing weight of anxiety, that endless loop of worry and rumination? If you have, stick around because I want to uncover some of the proven strategies that I have used to finally break free from that rumination once and for all. If you're like me, you've often found yourself trapped in the vicious cycle of anxiety, dread, and obsessive overthinking. These uninvited guests in our mind, they hijack that mind, they rob us of peace, of presence, of serenity. First and foremost, I want you to know that you're not alone. You're certainly not alone in this battle. We've all faced intrusive thoughts that disconnect us from joy before. The good news is that there are tools and that freedom exists for those who seek it. Now, if you've watched any of our videos up until this point, you know that before we are willing to dive into the solution, we find that it's important to explore some of the core struggles. The struggles that in this case perpetuate something like obsessive thinking patterns. So I want to peel back the layers, get honest about our pains, and I do this because it builds empathy for the shared human experience. Another way of saying that is creates common humanity. Now, anxiety and worry, those are notorious thieves, right? Thieves of peace and productivity. Chronic stress is often the driver behind those, releasing cortisol and releasing adrenaline. It activates our fight or flight mode in the body and the brain. So have you ever felt your mind almost race with that fearful thinking, preparations for an imaginary disaster? I recall countless sleepless nights spent wrestling within this exhausting cycle myself. Well, what's the truth? Anxiety is lying. Our inner judge, our accomplice saboteurs, they fixate on unlikely worst-case scenarios, cultivating irrational dread. Stress starts to narrow our focus. It obscures the positives that are already around us. And before long, we're living in isolation inside our worried minds rather than simply embracing reality. Well, then there's depression, the heavy weight that smothers motivation. It smothers joy. Those of us who have faced its darkness know that battle is real. And perhaps you felt its cold grip before, struggling beneath waves of hopelessness and grief. I remember days where simply, and I mean this literally, getting out of bed felt impossible. My mind flooded with negative self-talk. During these moments of despair, why not? Loneliness often tags along, isolating us even further, and we withdraw socially, we disconnect from our support systems, and we listen exclusively to inner voices that are fueling the shame and fueling the unworthiness. That cycle is painful, ruminating thoughts, defeated resignation. If this feels familiar, hear this. You're not alone. Together, we can start to rewire our thinking. We can reconnect to others and reclaim our inner light. Brighter days await all who seek them there as well. And then the all too famous trio of regret, guilt, and shame. Emotions keeping so many of us bound in obsessive overthinking, disconnected from our true selves. When we fixate on past mistakes, it's so easy to get stuck, judging ourselves instead of forgiving ourselves. Guilt has a way of breeding this lingering shame until self-compassion fades away completely. I too have faced regret's relentless grip, endlessly analyzing where I fell short and making little room for grace. Ultimately, I lost sight of my inherent worth and I started to view myself through the lens of disappointment. If this resonates with you at all, I want you to know your flaws and your falls, they do not disqualify you. Worth comes from not perfection, but courage to grow. All right, now we've identified some core struggles that breed anxious rumination. And it's time to explore some strategies to disrupt these patterns and reclaim our peace. So get ready to spit out the toxic mental cud and trade in fretting for freedom. Now, we've all heard of rumination before. If not, you've heard about it today, right? But did you know that it literally refers to the digestion process in animals like cows who regurgitate and rechew their cud? Just like anxious cows, these obsessive thoughts that cause us to mentally regurgitate distress again and again and again. Well, researchers link this behavior to increased risk for depression and anxiety disorders. That makes sense. The good news here is that we can actually choose to redirect our focus and we can spit out the cud, so to speak. When we stay mentally active and we direct our energy towards solutions instead of spinning within worry and rumination, everything kind of quiets itself down. So if you catch your mind drifting repeatedly towards the negative, I want you to get active. Get active in fixing what you can control. That might mean engage in a project. You might connect with a supportive friend. Commit to some small steps towards finding a particular solution. It's about movement. It's about taking action. It's about getting in the game. Now, I want you to meet Bluma Zygarnik. She's a Lithuanian psychologist, and she discovered something interesting. We as human beings actually have stronger memories around unfinished tasks and unresolved details. It's now known popularly as the Zygarnik effect, this quirk of human psychology, and it reviews why loose ends and uncertainty fuel rumination. Others have described this phenomena, so to speak, as task-specific tension. Quite simply, achieving closure, it signals to our brains this release to let go of the grip of obsessive focus. For those that are interested, because I know that there's someone out there who's actually watching this saying, how do they know that? Where was that study? Back in the 1920s, Bluma's professor Kurt Lewin noticed that waiters who hadn't been paid for their orders had better memories for those orders than they did had they been paid. So that's pretty fascinating, right? So when we're facing the looping worries, I want you to identify any unfinished business you might be able to tackle right now in that moment. Determine the logical next steps for confronting the worries within your circle of control, in your hula hoop. Can you schedule that difficult conversation, for example, or maybe research possible solutions or forgive someone whose actions are still for some reason bothering you? Getting a resolution kickstarts our minds into releasing the mental strongholds that are driving the compulsive overthinking. Now, quick fixes like the distraction and the closure, they'll help the short circuit anxious thoughts stop. But we really want to rewire the long-term thinking because that's crucial for sustainable mental health. So where do we start reprogramming our overactive worry centers? We start by questioning anxiety's exaggerations and restructuring inner dialogue towards truth, towards empowerment, and towards solutions. Cognitive behavioral therapy powerfully equips us to target rumination at its very core, at its roots. By journaling distressing thoughts when those thoughts arise, we can actually clearly see distorted patterns like a fortune telling or magnification of the negatives or compartmentalization. And then using really helpful techniques or tools like thought substitution or disputation, we can actually actively talk back to anxiety's lies, with realistic, hopeful truths. So it's time to intentionally restructure thinking that then reshapes the neural pathway and then empowering peace to become somewhat our new normal. Now we've covered a lot of ground, exploring some common struggles that perpetuate the anxious rumination, the healthy strategies that can disrupt some of those patterns. And now I want to discuss how to almost curate your own personal toolkit to cement those solutions for the long term. One crucial way to starve rumination over time is belonging to something like a supportive community, somebody who gets it, who gets you. And whether joining a small group or you're seeking counseling, I love EMDR, or you're just texting some honest friends, about your struggles, that vulnerability breeds that vital connection. Even online groups help normalize your experience in that regard. When we feel understood, those obsessive thoughts, they start to lose quite a bit of their power. So lean into those safe spaces that nurture authenticity, that nurture forgiveness and hope, and surround yourself with voices of compassion, not voices of judgment. And don't neglect self-care. Self-care practices like healthy boundary setting or saying no when you're feeling overwhelmed. I want you to protect your energy and your community. It'll really help keep you speaking truth into places where obsessive thinking took too much root. Their love will drown out rumination's lies. While connecting outward heals isolation's damage, cultivating self-love inward is tackling shame's stronghold. Often the perfectionists in us, those inner critics, they fuel anxious thoughts, demanding we earn our worth through tireless striving while dismissing just small wins. Begin seeing yourself through the eyes of grace. I want you to celebrate your qualities that you admire as though you are admiring a loved one. Why not offer that same affection to yourself? Another really simple yet I find to be powerful tool, it's a habit of writing an encouraging letter to yourself when you're struggling. And then I want you to revisit that letter during better days. Hearing your own loving voice reminds your heart of its innate value, that it has profound impact. It rewires that self-talk. Be the nurturing friend that anxiety tries convincing that you don't deserve, that you don't have. We've covered a lot of ground, so much ground today. Examining common roots that perpetuate the obsessive thinking, the rumination, and then some actionable steps to rewrite these patterns. Just remember that real transformation, it happens gradually and then all at once through daily practice. We're playing the long game. Be patient with yourself and lean on support systems for levels of encouragement. If any aspect of our discussion resonated with your experience today, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share which coping strategies resonate the most with you in the comments below, and really feel free to ask any kind of clarifying question. This, after all, is your space, the space we created for you. Until next time, know that freedom from the anxious rumination awaits. It awaits all those who are willing to walk in truth, to walk with self-compassion, and to walk with resolution. The power to quiet your inner storms is within you. Just take that next step. And as always, here's to living unstoppably free together today.